Hello, good evening. It's Julia here, the single mum entrepreneur, and I'm just squeezing in a little live whilst I'm waiting for my son to finish Scouts. They've gone on a night hike around the local common. So yeah, thankfully it's not too cold, but yeah, they're all, there's a bunch of Scouts out roaming on the common with lots of leaders as well too, so it's all good. So I thought I'd come onto Facebook before I go and pick him up. But what I'd just like to go over tonight is a little bit about the side hustle. Now, I wrote a blog post about this recently, so you can kind of head over and have a look at that. But and that's actually on my website, which is allthewsinglemumentrepreneur.com. So I was thinking about the side hustle. And, you know, when I say side hustle, I don't necessarily mean, you know, another part-time job that's maybe something that takes even more time away from family and doing the things that you love. So I was thinking about more like, you know, the kind of the online businesses that you can do that will give you much more freedom, things that you can do at home or work from anywhere, but aren't just necessarily, you know, other part-time jobs that are then going to drag you in another direction and physically take you out of the house all the time, when obviously you've got much better things to do. So the first thing I wanted to say was that actually, you know, when I started my first side hustle, I was still working full-time in software sales. E-commerce is my thing. I love e-commerce. And I started a store, a bit too generalised. I was selling handbags, but I was selling all sorts of handbags called the Love of Bags. One day I will probably go back to it, who knows, but it was a bit too generalised. And that was back in the day before I'd learned that I really had to niche down and be very focused about my target audience, you know, because I was trying to sell all sorts of bags, whereas I would have probably been better just focusing on one particular type of bag and aiming that at a particular target audience or particular niche as a subset of consumers. But anyway, so I was still working full time. And I think, you see, a lot of people now, if you think about starting a business, if they haven't really got resources to sort of back up that whole startup scenario, then they maybe think, I've just got to go all out. I've got to throw everything into it, you know. And sometimes, I mean, okay, sometimes you can do that if you've got the means and, you know, you've kind of done tons of research and you've got a big business plan, or you've got some investment, you know, situations are different. But, you know, in my case, I was kind of testing the water. So I was taking a little risk. I was going to see what worked as minimum upfront investment, and virtually zero. And, you know, so that's how I did it. So essentially leaving your day job is not a prerequisite for having a side hustle, which is good to know, isn't it? It's good to know, because you do have to be extremely focused, extremely disciplined with your time. You know, if you know that, you know, you can't get distracted by your side hustle when you're in your day job and vice versa, or your regular job. But the most important thing to think about, first of all, is, you know, to start with your why. Why? What do I want to get out of this side hustle, financially and otherwise? You know, because it may well be that you think, well, actually, I'd like this as a side gig, but I'm not quite sure where it's going to go at the moment. I don't really know, you know, what it might evolve into. I only need a few extra £100 a month or whatever. All these factors, this will kind of determine what direction you're going. But for a lot of people, the big kind of trigger is their passion. You know, it's like, I'm really passionate about a particular area, or you have experienced a particular problem or challenge yourself and you want to be able to help others overcome that same challenge. Maybe it's something practical. You have a particular hobby and you realise, oh, it's a real pain when I've got to do such and such. You know, somebody was talking recently about a particular problem they really have in the kitchen with a lack of a certain type of gadget which would really help them. So then I started thinking about, well, okay, can I source this from somewhere? You know, so sometimes that is a trigger. It's something you're really passionate about, or you want some extra money, but you don't necessarily want to, you know, take on several part-time jobs. You are solving a problem that other people may be experiencing. You know, it can be a combination of all those things. For me, you know, I had a passion. I really, really loved e-commerce because I'd always been selling stuff on eBay. So I kind of, felt a bit like I was a trader. So in another life, maybe I'd have been a market trader, made a good living. But yeah, so that's, I like buying and selling. I love doing that. I've always kind of like combed charity shops looking for bargains that I can maybe resell and so on. Flipping. If I was in the property business, I'd like to flip property, but I'm not in that area at all. So your why is really important, and there are ways which I can show in another video of how you kind of break down your why and sort of analyse it. And you'll find that along your journey you will need to keep revisiting your why, because if you lose your way a little bit, you get distracted. Going back to my video last week about shiny object syndrome, there's so many temptations, especially in the online business world, where you get sort of pulled in different directions and it drags you away. So you're like, no, go back to what my why is, why I'm actually doing this. And I guess the next thing is then kind of when. And I suppose my answer would be, well, there's never a perfect time. There's never a perfect time to start a business or a side hustle, and particularly a side hustle, because obviously the risk is lower, because a side hustle is just that, it's not, you're not going all out and abandoning your job and throwing everything at the wall for your business. This is a side hustle that's allowing you to kind of test something out potentially, with less risk. So there's never a perfect time, but often you find, that it's often there's a transition. For me, the trigger was that I was turning, almost about to turn 50. Showing my age now. About to turn 50, and I realised, I thought, if I keep working like this, I will probably not be able to have as comfortable a retirement as I would really like, because I'm not going to get to the top of this organisation. I'm not going to. There's only a certain distance I can go within this company. So I really need to think about what else I can do that hopefully will evolve then into, maybe a full-time kind of gig, as it were, and to just give me sort of additional income streams. Because I thought, well, I probably want to keep on working, but I don't want to be, kind of actually slaving away till I'm 70. I would like to have a financial safety net. And that's what started for me. It was a midlife kind of thing. And I've met a lot of midlifers over the past few years who have, decided, actually, maybe I need to supplement my pension, when I get to retirement age, or I've learned so much in my life. I've got skills that I can, enhance with kind of new skills. Perhaps in the online world, I can transfer what I've been doing offline all my life into the online world with greater and broader reach, and I can bring those benefits, to a much wider audience. For some people it's when they have a baby, they say, well, okay, we need to kind of take stock because, his mum can't necessarily kind of just go back to work that easily. And that would get me on my soapbox then about the lack of support for women to get back into the workplace after having children. Or I'd end up on my soapbox. I get completely sidetracked if we went to that. So, often a life transition or being made redundant, for example, that's another one. Life transition is a real trigger to go into a new business. But there of course there are times that maybe, I think it's all about mindset actually. You might say, well, actually I've been going through a really traumatic time. I mean, say for example you have been made redundant, or you've experienced bullying at work, which I personally did experience. When you come out of that, when your confidence is low and your mindset, you're not quite in the right place, then I'm not saying, go all out and start a side hustle straight away, because you do need time to recuperate and really kind of evaluate, what you want out of your life, or at least, even if it's just kind of short to medium term. So and you need to get your confidence back. And sometimes actually then that side hustle can give you confidence, but at the same time you need to have the right mind frame, otherwise, or frame of mind, otherwise, you could really get overwhelmed. And that is another thing, especially, that's another topic entirely with the online world. There are so many options, and you know, the shiny object syndrome can kick in at any time. I haven't met many entrepreneurs who haven't been lured by the, you know, the sight of something else that could be the next big thing that might help add value to their business and help them make money. So yeah, so that's the kind of the when. What I'm trying to say is sometimes you just got to get started. You know, sometimes you've just got to get started and take the plunge. And of course, that brings me on to the money side. Another topic, because I would say, you know, keep costs to a minimum as much as possible. You know, I mean, if you know, in your spare time, you know, make beautiful decorations, or you've got a particular talent for certain crafts or jewellery making or whatever, then, you know, you can have a shop on Etsy. You don't need a website. You know, you don't need to go out and get somebody to spend, you know, $1,000 plus $2,000 or whatever on a website. You know, if you have a particular skill, you know, if you're sort of working in marketing, you're a great copywriter, for example, you can be selling those services on a freelancing site like that's Fiverr and people per hour and, you know, so on. So, you know, you don't have to suddenly make a massive investment in a website and say, right, so I've learned that the hard way. And I know many other entrepreneurs who have, in that they've thought, I've got to have everything right. My logo's got to be perfect. My brand has got to be perfect. Well, actually, no, they don't, because you can tweak them. Because in the early days, you're evolving. So I would really kind of recommend that. The other area that I would really say to focus on is obviously schedule. Because if you're doing, you know, your day job and you've also got your side gig, you know, you are in effect your boss, you're your own boss of your side gig and you're an employee, and you have to make sure that they don't sort of encroach on each other. The good thing is that, because funnily enough, people often say to me, well, should I tell my boss? Well, only you can know what your kind of boss is like and how the reaction might be. But in my experience nowadays, the kind of skills that you learn when you're building a side gig or a side hustle, especially the online skills, digital marketing skills, or, you know, social media management. With me, it was also like video marketing. I learned how to produce videos and so on. So, and often those skills are real assets to the business that you're working in. So that's great. So I think as long as that you know, you avoid the conflict of interests, you avoid, you know, you're not kind of targeting clients that actually, you know, your employer targets as well. So you're avoiding conflict of interest, but also, you know, Sunday night, sit down and say, okay, I'm going to schedule like a boss, and then you follow your schedule throughout the rest of the week like an employee of your own company, as well as an employee of, yeah, you know, your regular job and your position, and you know, be very, very strict. Try not, as much as hard as it is, you know, I've been victim of distraction a lot, but, you know, try to make sure that when you've carved out the time for both positions during the week, that you don't allow that overlap. You know, that you don't get distracted by the side gig on, you know, when you're on your payroll time, and vice versa. And to a certain extent, I mean, there has to be flexibility. So it will be inevitable that there will be some kind of crossover of time. But, you know, even in your lunch hour, you know, your side gig essentially is for the time that you are not, you know, working on your employer's time. And for me, I'm a night owl, so I like to work at night. You know, I have a really good friend who's in the online affiliate marketing world, Sophie. She is an early bird. She gets up at 4:30 and does all her, because she homeschools, so she does all her work. She does a day's work before I've even got up. You know, it's you figure out your own schedule and find out what works for you. But the most important thing is, you know, just get organised and don't panic and be excited. Because, you know, if you think, oh, I'm a bit fed up in my job, really, you know, actually sometimes having a side gig can then really just make you feel better, you know, really make you feel more alive, more passionate, and more excited about what the future could hold and where this could go. So it can enhance your life even without you necessarily giving up your job and sacrificing financial stability for the sake of it. So so these are some of the tips I would pass on. I hope that you've found them valuable. If you currently have a side gig, maybe you'd like to put something in the comments box. If you're not watching this live, because if you are, please like or love my video. If you're not watching it live and you watch it later, just put #replay, and I would really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the evening, and God bless. Take care. Bye.